Like,
I used to have a license plate when I lived in Texas. It was dnw.com was the
oh
license plate.
wow.
They even let you put dots in
Wow.
the license plate. But then
Oh,
I realized it's like I'm putting my phone number on the back
it
of my
is.
car. And so if
Yeah.
anyone gets
Yeah.
mad, they know where to
Yeah.
find me.
Dan with
So
Dan,
Yeah.
Dan with Jen, Dan with Dan, Dan with Dan, Dan with Jen.
Andrew Allemann, welcome to 10 with Jen, where I ask 10 out of 10s like yourself 10 questions in around 10 minutes to get to know you in a fun way.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I got to see you briefly in Vegas, but we didn't get to say hello. So
Yeah.
it's really good to connect with you.
This is awesome. I can't wait. Okay. A little bit about you. Andrew Allemann is the publisher of Domain Name Wire, a go-to news source for the domain name industry, now celebrating its 20th year. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
In the words of his friend Mike Seiger, he's a true entrepreneur's entrepreneur with a knack for developing niche online solutions, including podcastguests.com, which he sold in 2023, and more recently, collegeiq.com. A proud Longhorn and hockey fanatic, Andrew graduated at the top of his class from the University of Texas Business Honors Program. When he's not running successful ventures or covering the latest in domain news, you'll find him playing pickleball or soaking up the beauty of his island home near Seattle. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing well. That's the best intro I think I've ever had. I should crib that for other people. So
Okay, Andrew, are you ready for your 10 with Jen?
let's do it.
Hockey or pickleball?
Ooh,
Ooh.
I'm gonna cheat. Watch hockey, play pickleball. So
Ooh.
I don't play hockey myself, but I love watching it. And my kid and I love watching it together too. And I'm a St. Louis Blues fan, grew up in St. Louis, but pickleball is so much fun to play. And so you won't catch me on a pair of ice skates. I'd be falling all over the place, but I do enjoy playing pickleball a lot.
Out of all of the guests you've interviewed on Domain Name Wire, who has been your favorite and why?
I'm gonna pull out one who's only been on my show once, and that was Paul Macapetris. And this comes off the top of my head. He was the inventor of the DNS, the creator of the DNS. And it was so cool to talk to him and hear these stories about, how they came up. They're like, nobody's going to use COM, but we'll go ahead and put it out there and that sort of thing. And all these early decisions they made that has had such a big, so many, a huge ramification on everything that we do, right? What we do for a living. So I would say that was kind of the most interesting. Also because I didn't know Paul and I had never really talked to him before. So I actually kind of learned a lot and really enjoyed that. And then there's some guests that I think are great. My most frequent guest is Bill Sweetman, who is just
Oh,
an excellent
yeah.
guest. He really delivers a lot of great information about domains.
Yeah.
So he's definitely my most frequent. But I would say I think the most interesting one, the one where I got the coolest stories, was probably from Paul Macapetris.
What is the most trouble you've ever gotten into?
That's a good, hard question. I feel like, I was a child growing up in the 80s, and I feel like we did so much stuff that today you just wouldn't do, right? I mean,
Right.
because we would run around, what do they call it, like wild children now or whatever, or free range children. Like that was everyone in the
Yeah.
80s. So I'm trying to think of some of the stupid stuff we did. Like there were always these pears that grew on trees in the neighborhood, and we throw those at cars going by. All this stupid stuff. But I don't know. I'm not a troublemaker. I'm kind of a rule follower a lot of ways. So I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know that I have anything really interesting there.
I'll take the pair throwing. That's a good one.
All right. All right. Threw
And
pears at moving cars. Long time ago. Statute of limitations has
yeah, yeah.
passed for sure.
For a true whiskey enthusiast like yourself, what's the
Mm.
one bottle that's completely underrated?
Underrated.
Mm.
Underrated. Well, my favorite bottle is the Taylor Single Barrel. And honestly, I guess in the world of whiskey, in a lot of ways, it is underrated because, everyone goes for the Pappy, Van Winkle, and that sort of thing. And this one's still hard to get, the Taylor Single Barrel, but it's, like on the aftermarket, I think there is an aftermarket for whiskey. I think it's like $200 a bottle rather than, 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 like Pappy is. So in a lot of ways, I think it's under the radar. Whiskey aficionados obviously are familiar with it, but I would say that's my favorite. And I actually it's hard to get, but our local store got a lot this year, and I had to stop buying it because I ran out of room in my whiskey cabinet. And so without asking my wife's permission, I took over another cabinet, and then she opened up the door to get something out of there, and it was just a wall of these whiskey bottles. So I had to dial it back a little bit.
What is the most terrifying animal?
Okay. One of my favorite animals is the sea otter. They're just adorable. They're the ones that lay on their back in the sea. They have like the shells on their, and they cuddle with each other and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The river otter, on the other hand, scares the bejesus out of me. And there was a woman walking her toddler on a pier just a few miles from here.
Yeah.
And this river otter, river otters can be in the sea or river. Okay. This is, in the sea. It jumps up and grabs the kid and takes it down underwater. And the woman had to beat it away and fight it away. They are,
God.
Oh, they're so scary. And occasionally we'll have one in our yard. We're close to the water, but we're like 100 feet up. Like there's a sheer cliff. I don't know how or why they come up here, but every once in a while you'll see one just kind of scurrying really fast through the yard and then diving back down.
Oh, so, my gosh.
But yeah, river otters to me, I think that would be my scariest.
In an article from Inspiring Startups in 2020, you mentioned that you write down 5 things that you're thankful for every night. Do you still practice this habit? And if so, how does it help you stay productive as an entrepreneur?
I'm glad you brought that up because I've gotten out of that habit and it's one I'd like to get back into. It's really more of a mindfulness thing than anything else, right? And it's like, especially, there's a little bit of bad news these days whenever you are on the interwebs. And so it's always good to think about, okay, there's a bunch of bad stuff out there, but what are some of the good things that I did during the day? And it can be as simple as I read an interesting article, or I went for a walk, or I sat in a hot tub, or I had an interesting conversation, that sort of thing. It can be something kind of simple. By focusing on that, and right before you go to bed, it kind of gets you in the right mood, which I'm really glad you brought that up because lately I've been having a little trouble sleeping. So I need to start that practice again.
Mindfulness really is a practice. I remember when I started doing it and I thought, oh, this is rubbish. Like what, And
it's hard. It's hard when you start too. I mean, it never really gets easy, I don't think. But, just trying to sit there and even meditate for a few minutes, it's really hard.
Like me, you live on an island. What do you love most about island living?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious. You're surrounded by water, right? Which is pretty cool. I love going down to the waterfront and or getting out the binoculars and just kind of seeing what's going on there. I love watching. We have a lot of huge cargo boat traffic that goes by. Yep. And we also have a military base, naval base around here. So you'll see the aircraft carriers and that sort of thing go by. So there's a cool app I think it's called Marine Traffic, where you can see all the boats that are going by and see what they are.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes the military ones aren't on there. They have their transponders turned off. So I really enjoy that. And then there's, this is a blessing and a curse. There's kind of this tight-knit kind of feel to it, right? Mm-hmm. Like we all go through the same things, like taking a ferry into town and the frustrations with that. Yeah. But it's also, there are 25,000 people on our island. So if you go to the grocery store, there's a decent chance you'll bump into someone you know.
Yes.
And people are a little, I want to say this, but I think of exceptions. They tend to be a little bit nicer because they know, like when they're driving, that's probably one of my neighbors if I, tailgate them or something like that. So I'd say those are all kind of fun things that come with living on an island.
In 2023, you sold your platform podcastguests.com to serial entrepreneur Brian Scully for an undisclosed amount. What's one thing about the M&A process that no one really talks about, but every founder should know?
Wow, I would say it's just so much work,
Okay.
right? I mean, and I know that might seem obvious, but when it comes down to it, you're having discussions with so many different people. They're always asking for different data. Um, and then, most of those conversations don't result in anything, right? So just over months, it's like having another, half-time job as you're going through that process. And then the transition as well. So, frankly, it was with a domain name, you sell the name, that's it, right? With a website, there's so much more that goes into it, and with a business, and so I would say it was a lot more work than it took a lot more hours overall than I expected. I would say some things entrepreneurs should do to try to make the process easier is keep things separate to the extent that you can. It makes, like, if you're creating a social media page, you might attach it to your master account at Facebook or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And your email, like, so we had all of our emails in one account for all my, domain name wire and podcast guests and my wife's stuff, keeping that stuff separate, or at
Yeah.
least finding a way, putting it on a platform where it's easy to separate out if you need to,
Yeah.
will really save you a lot of time when it comes to selling your business.
You're stranded on an island with the Sherpas. Who would you eat first?
Let's see. Do I need to go for the meatiest person or, well, when I think of all the Sherpas, I mean, obviously you're sticking around because I need to hear your Australian accent to, get me through the day. Amar is one of my favorite people in the world. And he's nice to a fault. So I'm going to keep him around. I'd probably take Drew out first. I'm going to be honest, because he's going to be like going down all these conspiratorial things about why this happened and this and that. So that would probably be my first elimination. I think would be my guess. But I don't know. He doesn't have a lot of meat on his bones, so
Yeah.
you know.
It's a popular strategic choice, I'm finding.
Yes. Yes, yeah.
You recently launched collegeiq.com, a platform that aims to make the college search process smarter and more personalized. Can you share more about what inspired you to create it and what sets it apart from traditional college search methods?
So my kid is a freshman in college right now, so we just went through the college process, which in the United States is very tricky. Colleges are very expensive. There's a lot of choice. There are thousands of colleges to choose from. And going through the process, I realized, or one of the struggles is there's lots of data about colleges out there, but it's in all these different places, right? So you have to go, search for certain documents. Sometimes you have to run calculations to figure out things, taking this number and that number, to come up with ratios and that sort of thing. So I thought, what if I created a platform that would make it easier for students and their parents to find some of these schools that they might not be aware of? All the kids, they focus on these top schools that either have a well-known football team or it's Harvard or Yale, it's an Ivy League. And then they look at their kind of local schools and their state schools. But there are a lot of cool schools out there that I think kids, if they were just aware of them, they would find that they're a great fit for them and they'd apply to them. So that was kind of the thinking. Compared to other search sites, some of the interesting things we do is we calculate how much people typically pay to go if they don't get need-based aid. So taking scholarships into consideration. And then we also look at social factors and political factors. So a lot of students want to go to school in either a city or a state that leans toward their political preferences or has laws related to campus carry gun laws and that sort of thing that really matter to them. So you can sort by that and things like weather. I did a survey of high school juniors and seniors a few months ago about some of their biggest influences on why they would choose to apply to a school or not. And the number one thing was what the campus carry gun laws are in that state. Which makes sense for this generation, right?
Okay,
Because
yeah,
they grew
yeah.
up with, that
Yep.
and that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
so you can sort by that. You can sort by states that have anti-DEI laws. all those things that we're hearing in the news right now. So that was kind of the idea. Bring all this information into one spot where students can surface schools that might be a good fit for them.
Andrew, thank you for your time today. You've now been Tend with Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Oh, I love this. I learn something new all the time. River otters. Who would have thought?